So what's going on, Josh? Man, I appreciate you being here. It's been, we were saying before the show, I don't get to see you as much as I'd like. I enjoy our conversations every time we get together. It's just that natural connection that I appreciate how much you care about what you do so much. I appreciate, I've had fortunate to meet some of your family members as well, and you guys all share that same mentality, that same aura, and it's easy for me to gravitate towards that. So I wanted to start off by thanking you for everything you've done. You've sponsored pretty much every single event we've had, all the fashion shows. I don't even have to twist your arm. It's just gracefully you're willing to help out. And as I started meeting you and getting to know you over the past several years, and then through business, starting to pick your brain on certain topics and situations, I consider you one of those people that you're doing some amazing things, and there's a lot of things that I want to implement into my life and my business based off of what I've seen your business do over the years and everything. So I appreciate you more than I could probably express to you, and I genuinely appreciate your time, because I know you got a handful of kids now and family and all that stuff, so to be away from them is difficult, so thank you.
No problem. Definitely thank you for all the opportunity, the conversations in general.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's always nice to pick somebody's brain who's just as passionate about their industry, being an entrepreneur, being a businessman, and understanding the people around them. Your work with charity, you just have such an open heart to so many charities, and you do such great work. So it makes it super easy when I go to our board and I say, hey, I got this guy down in Pittsburgh. He's doing all the right things. He's growing a business. We want to support that entrepreneurial work. We want to support that spirit. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Both ways.
Yeah.
And, I love it.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that's just something that you guys, and we'll dive into your story and everything, but I'm assuming that's something that you guys just have always instilled in the characteristics and the value of your business is taking care of people, doing what's right, and helping the community. I would assume so, right?
Yeah, that really has always kind of been not only my father's goal, who runs the business right now and is president, but also my grandfather really distilled it inside of my father. One of the biggest things was military. That was always something to support, but I can even remember my grandfather used to leave fruit baskets and food at Little Sisters of the Poor down here in Pittsburgh anonymously, and they could never figure out who it was. Yep. And then years and years later, they finally figured out. And I can remember seeing them at his funeral, 10, 15 years ago, but that, and they're telling you about this man who's your grandfather. And so we've always not only wanted to support our communities, especially in Pittsburgh, but our military, and also not only that, but when we view ourselves as employers to our associates, we're supporting their families and their children. That to us is a very important aspect of being business owners, especially in family businesses. We're responsible for the mouths to feed our whole leadership team. And so having that kind of mindset does really encourage people who come to Yerecic Label. They say, you know what, I want to stay here. This is a good place. It's not like other places. So
yeah, the one thing I've realized in business over the last several years is gratitude is everything, and I think that has made the journey be even more fulfilling than it ever could be. And it's one of those things to me that's so simple, and it makes you a happier person every single day. And so many people neglect that and don't prioritize that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Whenever you come to gratitude for your associates, their sacrifice, it's hard to ask an associate to work overtime or go the extra mile for you. But when they have that gratitude from you, and you're clearly showing it not only by involving yourself in their day-to-day of, hey, what's going on in your work? How can I help you as a manager? Because ultimately, as a manager or somebody who runs a business, you're the one with the power to help those people that are struggling to produce the product you're trying to sell. So finding that out and, starting at that base level with them and making sure that they understand that, hey, I got your back, and then that relationship tends to evolve. And like you said, then they really have that gratitude of, hey, I'm working for a good place. And for yourself, it's it's a non-payment reward that feels better than really any money you can get in any business transaction.
There's not a dollar value that you can get from somebody that can replace the feeling of seeing somebody smile or appreciate something that you've done for them. And it could be as simple as seeing somebody at the end of the day past 5 o'clock or past quitting hours, whatever time that is, and just walking up to them and like, thank you. I really appreciate you still being here.
Yeah.
And you know, with what you just said and all that stuff, kind of diving into the team side of things on your business, it sounds like everybody has probably been there for a decent amount of time from a longevity standpoint.
Yeah. So our average tenure, I believe right now is around 15 years. And we got a nice mix. We got some people who were 36 years, 32 years. That's longer than I've been born.
Yeah.
You know, they knew when I was born. And then we have young guys and young ladies who've come in, and, you know, there's a power to them as well. And them bringing technology, what we were just talking about before we got on here is, you know, that understanding and a new outlook on not only how you're doing things in your production facility, but how you're treating your associates and making sure that you have a work environment that everybody feels comfortable in. So yeah, the team really is comprised of a very diverse group, but on every shift and every press cell, we really push team effort. My father's huge in sports, so kind of the way our label, our production facility works, and then our front office works is we have teams, and this came from lean thinking. My father read this book called The Goal by Eli Goldratt, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but basically what he decided was, you know, there's waste of motion and movement throughout the facility. If I put my sales coordinator who talks to the customer, gets all the information from the sales team, any problem a customer has, they take care of it, they place the orders, make sure they're right, communicate with the artist. If I put them in the same cubicle as an artist, then they don't have to walk out the next door, and that saves us some time. So you have that, and then you have the sales rep in there as well. And so there's this kind of little family that all of our customers, each of them get, you know, one of those families.
So it's a little pod per customer, essentially.
And
no
it's,
kidding.
It's delved out between sections of the country, between sales reps. We have a Northeast sales rep. We have a Midwest sales rep. So that's kind of how our office is working, because you see a lot of lean in production, but you never see it in an office. And that really started back in the 90s when my father, he actually read this book by Eli Goldratt.
I have to read that. I have to check it out.
It's a great, phenomenal business book. One, because it's written in a story form. It's not just, all right, here's the numbers, here's the practices. It's a guy who's struggling. He has a family. He can't get his plant running. And he starts asking questions after he goes on this hike with his son. You know, how can I produce or make this Boy Scout trip better? Turns into, well, what if I took that into my business and tried to do that? So my father read this book driving to Chicago. This is as he picked it up.
One knee holding the wheel, the other one.
He will admit it every day. He said, as soon as I started it, I knew, he was like, it's my facility. You know, this was right around back when my father in early 90s, I believe he was just taking more of the majority of control from my grandfather. And he said, you know, I read it the whole way to Chicago, and I knew this is what we need to do. And he came back, and where those artists were sitting and where those customer sales reps were sitting, they're now sales coordinators, he tore down all the walls. And he said, no, you're all sitting together. And then he went to our press room team, and this is the power going to the people you work with, you know, getting that information from the ground up. He said, hey, tell me the best way to set this press up without either you guys crossing each other, little waste. And as they practiced on it, it ended up becoming kind of one of our main stamps of recognizability in the industry. And he's taught hundreds of other label converters, you know, kind of the thought process behind it and how it can be better. Anybody who knows lean can walk into a building and say, this building's lean, this one isn't.
No kidding.
Yeah, manufacturing facilities, if you've been in enough of them.
I've been in a couple, and some of them are very like, what the hell are you thinking? And then some of them, when you see those and then you see something that's efficient, it's a no-brainer. Why are you even thinking about doing it that way? And I think it's hard for businesses when you get set in your way and you start building something. And, even for me, we're not a manufacturer on the front end of things, right? Obviously, we make the clothing, but the sales side of things and us building the business, hey, we're doing well. We're growing at X amount rate every year.
Yep.
Maybe we don't need to look into things, but you really have to analyze business on a constant basis to improve.
Exactly. That is one of the part of lean thinking, is just not only whenever you get to a production part, but just in philosophy in general. Whenever, we decided to do this, we saw the efficiencies, we saw the waste come down, we saw everything go up. And your point right there is so well taken, because one of the basic lean thinkings of lean is 5S. And it goes sort, set in order, standardize, shine, and sustain. So it's essentially like cleaning out your garage. You get everything out you don't want, you put everything in place, you label it all. This is where I want it all to be. So when I know to go get it, I know it's right here. Then you clean it all up. But the hardest one of that all is sustain, what you just mentioned, which is you got to constantly be looking at the aspects of your business, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's quoting. You could be running a great manufacturing facility, but if your quoting's wrong and you're only running something for, a 2 or 3% more, yep, it doesn't matter. So that sustain, it's as I look at it, I think about just nature in general. Human nature has an entropy. It wants to kind of be knocked down. You think about a beach with sand or a sandcastle. You think about, rivers and erosion. That's nature to kind of want to erode away in entropy. With that, you're just taking it into a business and saying, how do I prevent this? One of the great analogies I've heard on that is a trampoline, and you put a bunch of balls on it. There's chaos there, but it creates order out of chaos. And lean's that real tool to create the order out of the chaos and then keep it in check.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of analogies because it just breaks things down into such simplistic terms. And as you're talking about that, and the thing that clicked right away was the erosion side. You have a river going through a town, all this other stuff, right? And then it slowly starts eroding, evaporating, all that stuff. Well, in business, if you keep the business going the same way and you're not making changes, at some point, time, at some point, growth, at some point, society is going to grow without you. And then you're there still in that same rut, filling that same stream, which is eventually going to run out. That's really, really cool.
Exactly.
I love that.
I agree wholeheartedly. And that's exactly the way you need to be thinking about your business pretty much every day. I mean, I'm not to the level of my father. Yeah. Every day.
So that's what I was getting. My next question was going to be, how often do you keep the checks and balances on that stuff? Because a lot of our listeners for the podcast are current business owners, future business owners, people that are, hey, I'm dipping my toe in, I'm trying to figure out, is this something that makes sense? Or people that are just fascinated with self-improvement and growth and things of that nature. So I think even though these are business philosophies, I think they're life philosophies as well. And it's the same thing with, watching your health and eating certain food. You do these certain things and you don't tweak and you see no results, that something's going to happen. As you get older, you can't keep eating pizza all the time. You have to watch your cholesterol. You have to watch different issues that you could potentially have, which I finally have heartburn for the first time in my entire life. So
that's a bad one, man.
Dude, it's crazy. So, how often is that happening for you guys? And how has it always been that way? Did it stem from your grandfather, then just your dad when he started reading the books, and then he just became hyper-focused on it? Talk me through a little bit about that.
All right. So I would say, my grandfather's version of the company, and I don't know if he'd agree with this or not, but it was kind of more that 80s style company, it was just, but he, in general was just a hustler. He always was, his Korean War vet, amazing guy, looked out for the company and just knew he wanted to do something on his own. So he started back in 1969. He basically was a consultant, and he really knew people down the strip, and he was doing a lot with produce and stuff. So as that went on, he grows his business. He buys a press. He puts it in his house.
So he started one press himself, networking in the Strip District of Pittsburgh, and that's really how it started.
Well, it was in Penn Hills, and so he was networking in the Strip District. They actually at first, so he started as the AM Yerecic company. And funny thing is, I have another friend who owns an electric company. They did all the grounding for all the stadiums in Pittsburgh, and his is like AA Electric. I can't remember what it is, Bobby. If you're listening, I'm sorry. But I asked him why. I said his last name's Zafaris, and I said, well, why? And he goes, oh, my grandfather wanted the name at the front of the phone book, and I was like, when you didn't have a phone?
Strategy at that point, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I always respected that. So when my grandfather did, I was like, I wonder if that was the reason. So anyways, he was actually doing he would do bows for baskets with a hand crank. My dad would be down in the basement doing it in high school. So one day he overordered some labels, and he said, you know what, I'm just going to shelf stock these. And it just kind of went from there because somebody ordered 10 of one, 99 cent, 59 cent, 39 cent, 49 cent, how far back we're going now.
For sure.
And whenever they were like, no, we wanted one. We didn't want 10 of each. We wanted one and 10 of them. And he was like, well, what am I going to do? So he just threw them up on the shelf. And, 52 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So eventually it led to him getting a press. He put it in his garage in Penn Hills, and my dad would come home from work and he would run the press while my grandfather was out selling. The stories of, our van had a hole, and then my grandmother, she's a great human being. I love her to death. Still works for the company today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. One of the biggest pillars of the company, and I love her. I just saw her today. She's
Good
awesome.
for you, man. Very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. But she'd tell me no, I was the one picking up the Cadillac caller because my grandfather loved to drive a Cadillac because he was selling. He'd rather drive a Cadillac or a Lincoln.
Yep.
And she was handling the bill collectors while he's out driving that Cadillac trying to make this work, So
let me just pick your brain or just stop there for a second, because I think what you said was really unique. He found, he basically was providing a product for someone. He made a mistake on his end, whether, hey, it was just overlook on some capacity, but then he was able to turn that into something. That mistake essentially was the pillar or the foundation for a business 52 years later strong. And I wanted to stop and just mention that, because if you're listening and you're trying to figure things out, right? I didn't want to do suits. Suits were never a business idea of mine. Suits became, hey, this makes sense to try something.
Yeah.
Because I want to sell clothing to friends of mine and I want to have inexpensive clothing for myself. That's really how it started. With your grandfather and what he started with his legacy, it was the same situation. He just had an idea, created a product, made a mistake, and that mistake turned into the best mistake that probably could have happened to him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about that as a whole and then you simplify it, it's the most amazing thing you could possibly think of.
Exactly.
It changed his life, your grandmother's life, 35 years later, roughly, right?
Yeah,
your life.
My life.
And then for your kid's life down the road.
And the hundreds of employees who get a job, who've been not only with us now, but in and out. But you're absolutely right. And you have that same thought process. The transition during the pandemic, one of the big things I was like, what's David Allen going to do? But you saw that and you said, I need to pivot. I need to transition. And that's what any good entrepreneur or business owner is doing, is it's reading the market and seeing the customer's demand. It really doesn't matter what you want to do.
Yep.
It's what your customer wants from you.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have some money to dabble in some stuff that, and when you're successful, you can, and you can do those things. But that is so important to what we talked about before, is not staying in that same river bed, making sure you branch off and are trying to meet not only either your customers or your market's demands, because you just never know when you're going to get a curveball thrown at you. And so you got to be very flexible and agile when it comes to being a business owner or an entrepreneur, just in the business world, and you're really trying to make more of yourself in it. So,
and that's what's crazy too, because I had these visions when I started trying to become an entrepreneur, and there's that graph that you always see on social media when it talks about entrepreneurship, and it has the comparison of you start point here and then the second point straight ahead, and then it has all these zigzags in between there, and that's what I'm really understanding. And a lot of these sayings and a lot of these things that you see on social media, they're cheesy, they're gimmicky, and they talk about the entrepreneurial journey, but then when you live the entrepreneurial journey, you actually see that there's tangible reasons that those things are. And I always try to tell people, like, look, you have a starting point, and the finishing point you don't know. You have a potential direction of where you want to go, but you have to loosely hold on to that line. And when it makes sense to stray, you stray. You don't stray too far, too quickly, because you got to make sure that that straight line is kind of the litmus test from too crazy and too conservative. And I struggle on sometimes where I see the shiny light and I go running towards it, and fortunately, I'm in a spot now where I can do that a little bit easier. And if I make a mistake, the financial burden's not as bad, because I have a lot of calculated decisions that I have along the way to get to that second point. But at the end of the day, you always come back to that center line. Yeah. That's what's crazy to me.
Yeah. There's a bread and butter there almost, but what you're saying is so true. And I think, as we talk, and get into the company a little bit more, you'll kind of see some of those checks and balances that we have in place that really, because we've experienced, going after markets that we were like, well, we do stuff close to it. There's a lot of money here. And then, you invest some money in it, and then all of a sudden you're like, this doesn't make sense. And a couple of years ago, we really figured out how to make that process work. One of the biggest problems we had was we would come up with an idea and it'd get talked around, and I'd be testing it out in production and trying to figure out how to run it. Sales reps would hear it and they would just offer it.
Take it and go.
And it's not a product, And that was
the slimy sale. I'm a slimy sales rep, not a slimy one, but I'm a,
you know what I'm saying? Salesmen, if they see something that a customer wants, a product, and we got an answer for them, commission's there, man. I need my commission.
I love it. I love it.
So we actually have these cross-functional teams, and I'll get into them a little bit later. But one of them's product development. And it's really strictly about, all right, what markets do we want to focus on? Where's our next growth? And also, what products do we want to develop for our core businesses? But where's our next growth? What's the opportunity? And then that gets brought to what we call our BIT team. It's our board of officers, and it gets reported out. So this product development team is made up from people all over the company. So there could be a press operator in there. There's the R&D manager, there's a sales coordinator, there's a sales rep or two of them. IT could be in there. And so all those people are in there and talking about, because when you're trying to run a product through front to back, you need everybody in it. You need the opinion of, how is this going to affect me? You know what I'm saying? How is this going to affect their day to day? Because in production, I may not be thinking about a day to day for an artist. But then because I come up with this crazy product line, all of a sudden they're looking at it going, you just threw 4 hours into my workday. So that gives that ability. And we have 3 CFTs. They're called cross-functional teams. And so I had the order fulfillment one, which is the order to the shipping. There's a pre-order, which is the order in to me. And then there's product development, which is develop the product to pre-order. And so my 2 sisters, Elizabeth and Kristen, love them to death, always. You've met at least Elizabeth a couple times, right?
Yep.
Kristen, I'm still trying to get you to meet, but this whole pandemic thing went down. I had her planning on coming to the fashion show past time.
I remember you said that,
Yeah, but she's amazing. Both of them wouldn't be able to do what I do, nor the company, without them. They are just brilliant, brilliant people. And in the end, they both head up that product development and the pre-order. So once every week, we talk to the board of officers about what that team has been doing, what we've been working on, what we've identified, the problems we're fixing. So this leaves upper management the ability to not have to get down into those real weeds. And obviously we're in the upper management as well, but it allows, especially the president, to not have to deal with three different things.
There's a million things that their president's doing for a business. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so right now our president's actually head of sales too. So
yeah.
So, but in the end, it allows that free time up and him to be able to just approve and the vice presidents to approve. And it allows us to work at a much faster pace because not only that, I don't have all the time in the world to fix everything in production. So I'm allowed to delve out that kind of work, and it's all just about continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. So that's really how we kind of keep a check on things as we go through our weekly, and we meet every Friday at 2 for an hour and a half and really discuss
the entire company or just the board or
just the board.
Yep.
But the cross-functional teams, we meet every week as well, and we go through metrics that we've decided on that are important, sales dollars versus orders in. I'm looking at quality, not only that, but I'm looking at procedure audits, so we talked about that entropy. As I want my teams to do procedures to ensure good quality, when I don't get that answer, there's an audit checklist I have for my managers to do every day. And so they'll walk through and say, okay, do you have this splice in a paper mark? The splice could cause an issue because it's basically where the papers get met together. Mm-hmm. And there's a red tape there. It needs to be edited out. So they're checking, all right, did you make sure that you're taking those out? And it's those little things, those little attentions to detail that really enable a company to just push forward together and get the buy-in from the associates of, hey, we're going to run good product. We're going to serve our customer to 100% quality we want. And if we're not, it's not your fault, but tell me how we can fix it. That way, I'll take it to the CFT. We'll figure out a way to get it fixed, and then you won't have that issue anymore.
And that's really cool and actually unique from a standpoint of I'm not here to blame anybody. Let's just work as a team to get better. And I think a lot of business owners, and I struggle with it too, is like, you see a situation and you're like, oh shit, we made a mistake here. It cost X amount. And in the earlier stages in a business, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
When every dollar matters, and not that it doesn't at a different stage, but you run super lean in the beginning of stages and versus a business that's been around to the length that you guys have. And we had that issue in the early stages when Alvin was with me and working with me. Him and I would butt heads, and it was all in a great capacity. There was never any malice towards that. But it was that when things got tight and sales weren't coming in, and we had these expenses that were here, and the sales that were coming in were half of that, and you just had to figure out a way to get there. There was a lot of stress with that, and to hear you say, hey, let me talk to you about this, let me know where we can get better and improve is something that's really important because it does a couple things in my opinion. One, it tells your teammate, hey, we're in this together. Like this is not, you're not an employee of mine, you're a teammate of mine.
Exactly.
And that's more important than anything. And they should feel a part of the team and a family because they are a part of the team and the family. And then it also just says, hey, I'm willing to, you're the one that's in this every single day. You're the professional. You're the one that's diving deep. I know what you're doing, and I know that world because I've done it as I've grown the ladder here. But you're the professional, not me. So explain to me in a way that makes sense. Bring me a problem and bring me a solution to that problem, or at least an idea. And I'd love to hear you out. And it probably works well that way.
Yeah, I think it's powerful not only because they feel heard, and it's their job and they're taking pride in it. But it also is extremely important because I always want to approach life, whenever I look at things, is putting myself in other people's shoes. I think that's super important to put myself in other people's shoes. Whenever I look at my life, I've had a pretty blessed life. There's ups and downs here and there, but pretty blessed life. But when I had my downs, I remember those, and then when I see people with downs that are even more extreme than mine, like crazy, you're like, so for me, I feel it's so important to put yourself in your shoes. And it's simple for me when I go out on the floor because I've done it and I've put myself in that position. And so it's, hey, let me help you out. We're a team like you talked about. And in the end, it's better for everybody. It's better for the company. You get results. And I got to say, and it's something that I teach to my managers, and they'll tell you they've learned 95% of the times if you go in somewhere where there's a problem and you don't go in yelling if you're in charge, and you go in and you go, hey, what's going on? Tell me your side of the story. What's happening here? You get 95% of the time a legitimate answer that makes sense, and you're like, okay, I could see that going on here. So how did it happen? And then I think it's something we share in common is we like problem solving. Yep. We like to see a problem and go, okay, how can we fix that? And one of the most important things for me is I don't want to just fix it for you. I want to fix it for now anybody in the shop who comes across this problem, that they already have it solved for them.
Yeah.
Because why leave a stick in the road for somebody else to trip on when you're all working towards the same goal?
Because it's going to be there again if you don't correct it. And do you? So you mentioned about the approach and talking to somebody about a situation, right? Where I could admit that I am oftentimes trying to keep that in top of mind. And whether it's with a client, whether it's with people that work with me, whatever the case may be, I tend to have to go back at times and catch myself from getting mad and just saying, okay, cool, let's stop, let's breathe, let's figure this out. Hey, it's not life and death, so don't be mad about it. Get the real story and get the whole story, whether that's a client has a suit and, like I dealt with a situation the other day. Good friend of mine, very successful gentleman, and he gives me a call, and we did a tuxedo for a wedding for him. Yeah. And the suit was $2,000, so it was an expensive high-end product, right? And when you pay that kind of money, you expect a certain service, product, totally understandable, right? And I sent it to him, and he says, hey, I'll be there tomorrow to check it out. He's in a different state, and he throws it on. Then I get this message. He's like, can we talk? I'm like, oh, fuck, I know what's coming from this. So he gets me on FaceTime, and he's reviewing the product and everything. And I'm looking at it, and in the video, it's a little choppy, and I'm like, oh, fuck, man. He goes, this isn't an $1,800 suit or $2,000 suit. He goes, I could have spent $500 and got a better suit like this. And in the video, I'm like, damn, he's right. Like, what's going on here? And then the old me would have instantly gone on my email, hit up my manufacturing partner. Hey, I need this in 2 weeks. Yeah. This is crap. What are you guys doing? Why? This is this and this is wrong. And what I did this time was, because he needed it for a specific time, middle of May, and we're super bogged down with production, so I wanted to get ahead of it. So I just simply sent my manufacturing partner an email and just said, hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. This is the fabric. This is the potential situation. I'm having it overnighted to me tomorrow. I'm going to take a look at it in person before I make a decision on what the next steps are. But I just wanted to simply email you to give you a heads up to get it on your radar. And then I get the garment the next day, and I look at it, and I'm steaming it again, and I'm checking. I'm like, man, I'm actually proud of this thing. This thing looks great. And then I took some videos. I showed some things that I should have pressed it a little nicer. I should have steamed it a little nicer. He was going to take it to his own guy, so I didn't put as much attention as I should. Yeah. Note to myself moving forward, don't ever do that again. Make it as presentable regardless of what they say. But what I'm kind of getting at with that is, I, in the past, have gone off the handle and been like, what the fuck? Like, why is this wrong? Why? And taking what the client said first and taking that with 100% and then laying that on somebody else. And then I was actually, it was a proud moment for myself, because I'm like, I'm growing. I'm getting better. And that's really, really hard. And I try to also implement that into my daily life. And there are things with friends, family, relationships, all that stuff. And it's still hard, especially with family, because you're so close with them. They're an easier victim if you want to get mad, right? And I hate to say that, but it's easier to be mad at people you love the most. It is. And so hearing you say those things, I wanted to ask you, are you very well trained at keeping cool, at going into things? I'm sure there's situational price mistakes. If it's a bigger mistake, you get more of a headache. But do you ever catch yourself, or are you pretty groomed with doing it the right way?
In business, personal life, you try to implement it, and you really do, having two toddlers.
Well, yeah, so that's take the two toddlers out of the equation, because I see my siblings with their kids, and I get it. It's hard.
Who I love, Quentin and Sylvia. I love you. But in business, but it took me a long time. One thing my dad always says to me is like, you can have 100 win days, 200, 300 win days, but that one day where you blow up, you show up and you have a bad attitude, or you're yelling at people, or that's remembered throughout that whole 200, 300, 400. You can reference back all those days. Hey, I was great. I managed great. And, thanks to my dad, a lot of his coaching has got me to a point, in the past 4 or 5 years where really I feel like I've been able to make that transition. And a guy named Paul Browse, who's an excellent guy. I probably should have called him out. Shout out to Paul Browse. He used to be the head of Mark Andy, a press manufacturer. He's now a consultant, but he's the one who came up with the cross-functional team ideas. He sits on our board of directors, just a brilliant gentleman. I've learned so much from him. But as that came in, as I got coaching from my father and Paul Browse is coaching on, go ask the questions. Don't go in there, all upset. And then as I kind of got that learning over the past 5 years and, really kind of honed it in and watched others of my managers going in, that's the big thing when I would see that and I'd be like, and then I'd walk in and I'd go, what's wrong? And the guy would tell me, I'd be like, you have a legitimate reason for this not to be working. And I just had a manager blow up at you, And so when you see that happen, you're like, we got to change. We got to change now. Because I would never want to work for that. So over these past 5 years, especially with that training, Paul Browse actually does have a book out. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
But I'm apologizing to Paul if he's listening to this. But it's about generational transition, but also about cross-functional teams. It's a brilliant book told in the same type of way as Eli Goldratt, and it goes through the cross-functional teams.
You have to send that the name when you get it.
I will.
I'm always looking to add different reading and whatnot. And that sounds like something I need.
Yeah,
sure.
he's great, and he's Browse and my father have always been kind of those even tone guys. That they when they need the respect and they want the room and the microphone, but they're always listening. One of the things my father always told me too is General Washington always said a good general listens to his commanders.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me because those, like you said, those are the people in the muck, in the mud, doing the work for you, converting materials into dollars. And so, your number one goal should be, how do I make this person's job as easy as possible? Sometimes I'll get a little pushback from some harder workers. They're like, well, why don't we just dumb everything down? And I'm like, it would be brilliant. I would love that.
Yeah, of course.
So I could bring anybody in the door and do this. But I think it's so important to do that. And honing that skill has given me an even greater ability to go in and find out what's wrong and help fix it, because they want to talk to me. They know I'm going to listen and try to figure out what is hindering them and what can potentially make their day better, because they've seen the improvement and they understand that, oh, he's just trying to make my day easier, or actually we, when I say he, I got to preference it with the whole YL team, Yerecic Label team, board of directors, managers, the whole way down through. None of this stuff would be possible with how great they actually are.
Of course. So take me back to your pap. And he orders the labels, shelves the additional labels, and next steps for the business, the direction for him, and kind of talk me through that next step.
So he kind of went. He kind of went a couple different buildings, and just growing, trying to grow his bit, outselling all the time. We talked about the Cadillac. My father at the time, he had that 78 Bandit Trans Am. That's what he was driving.
Yeah, good for him.
With the Phoenix on it. He turned it in.
With the Will Ferrell one from Old School.
Yeah. He turned it in for a white van to deliver labels.
That's a commitment right there.
It's one of his stories, and I just like, because I'm like, man, I was like, that car is just legend, and he's like, we needed to do deliveries. I needed a white van.
Did he ever get a replacement car? That was that would be a hell of a gift from you.
It would be. I don't know if I can find one of those now, but it definitely would be.
Yeah.
And I got the 6 brothers and sisters. Maybe they can help me chip in.
They can all chip in at this point.
They grow into a couple different buildings, keep growing. finally,
Still in Penn Hills at this point?
they moved to, I believe it was Penn Trafford at a time, and then Irwin, or it might be Irwin, Penn Trafford, one or the other. And then we put a facility out in like Murraysville Export, PA. That's kind of the facility I remember growing up in. I can remember, you know, we had these huge masters of labels, or label stock. And as I was a kid, I would just run on them, you know, and just run across them, all those things. I could just remember growing up in that building. It's actually like when I leave the company for like a week or two, when I ever get a chance, I walk back in and the smell from that label stock like brings me back to my child. So
that had to be such a cool, like, I mean, think about the memories that were made in there, and like the you know, to me, traditions and, you know, things like that with family are so valuable to keep the memories alive. And that's something that's a motivation for me for building the business on my end is, man, like, I'm not going to be here forever. I want to have kids at some point. I want to pass something on to them, and I want them to have a family. And, you know, I hope my son grows up, if I have a child that wants to be in fashion and wants to be a part of this. And if not, it is what it is. But I get excited hearing you talk about this stuff, because there's so much more than just business behind what you guys are doing. And that's, I just keep saying that, but that's so impressive. But go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to chime in on that one.
No, you're good. You're good. So yeah, but you're right. There's that legacy there. And you're right. There's those traditions. I got guys who worked in that facility who saw me running on and could recall me running on I got plenty of stories with guys where, our lunch breaks, you know, I said it was very 80s, you know, my dad they'd be out playing softball for like an hour and a half. Yeah. And they'd be like, we really got to get back. My dad would be like, one more inning. You know, my dad's saying that, you know. So, but as he reads the goal, Eli Goldratt, you know, and he decides, you know what, I really want to kind of transform the business into what, you know, this is talking about. I want us to be lean. I want us to, you know, not, because we had things like, somebody would run jobs. We'd have press operators run jobs, and they'd sit for weeks, and they would need edits in them. And the guy who came in to slit them never talked to that guy, so he had no idea going on. So you have these, I mean, that's just one of the problems. So you could see the need for it. 1998, they broke ground in our new chem facility, which is the facility we are in now. My father's extremely proud of it because my grandfather was still alive. I believe he was alive for 3 more years. This is a man who he had both legs amputated.
Your grandfather?
And still would drive to work every day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I mean, this man, he's just, you know, he's inspiring. And,
of course.
You get a lot of, you know, you're like, I can't let this fail. Look at what this guy did. You know?
Were those health reasons that he lost? Yep.
Diabetes. Yep. He had diabetes in the end of his life. Well, you know, at some point. Yep. Ended up losing both legs because he's a stubborn guy. He's, I'm going to still smoke. I'm going to do what I want. You know.
Different generation, different mindset. Yeah, of course. And he, you know, survived the Korean War.
Korean War, yes.
You know, you go through that stuff. It's just, it's a fuck it, I lived my life type thing.
I'm going to live my life. Yeah. So, but, you know, super proud for my dad, and he built the facility to kind of reflect, you know, he didn't have to tear down walls now. He could build the walls that would reflect, you know, our pods, like you talked about, our cells. So, and throughout this whole period, we're really solely converting for, and when I say convert, for people who don't know what we're talking about, or we probably should at least cover this, we convert labels for the fresh meat industry, produce industry, now moving much more into pharmaceuticals. Produce is still one of our biggest growing ones. Pharmaceuticals, beer, wine. We've done some champagne. Nutraceuticals, Axe and Sledge down.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Axe and Sledge. Yeah. We do all their labels.
Good for you.
So yeah, if you look at like that textured look and all that stuff, that's all stuff that we're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's typically what we deal in. And so as my father wanted to grow the company, he came up with a couple lines that he really liked and honed them. Stuff other people weren't doing. You know the benefit of that. One was a multi-layer label, and it's called an EFC, or an Easy Fresh Cooking label. And so the thought process was, and one of the major powerful things my father and my sisters do is we go out and we do marketing research, third-party marketing research. And as they go out to sell, they bring that third-party marketing research to it. Not only that, we partner with the National Beef Association, the USDA, and people like that to make sure that, hey, and now we're partnering with, there's produce organizations who will let us present these findings at their large events. So that's a good big thing for it. But so my father comes up with this idea though, and through this research, he's like, okay, people want 15 minutes, easy cooking, show them a shot at a plate. When they open it up, it tells them how to care for the meat, and then it tells them the recipe. It was like kind of like Instagram videos before Instagram,
of course.
So
that was part of the labels that you guys created.
You would open
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
my father, and so they're all over the place right now. But my father saw one, and he was like, "This is something that the meat industry needs to communicate." Because in the meat industry, you have, how do you cook, a chicken thigh? A lot of people get intimidated by that. Or a roast, or a corned beef steak. How do you cook that? So whenever you give that information to people, it's much more powerful for them to go, okay, I'm not as intimidated. This is simple.
Sure.
So that really through early 90s to 2010 was really our bread and butter. But my father really saw, in meat's a summertime product. People are grilling. And in the winter, it'd go down a bit. So he saw a need. He was like, we really need to get kind of out west or down south. And we need to get into, his kind of thought process was always get around the fresh spot of the perimeter, which worked out, especially in the pandemic. I mean, but he was like, okay, we'll go from meat, and then we'll go into dairy, and bakery, and produce, and see, because we serve these people, and the reason why we serve them so well is it's very fast pace because it's fresh food. Once it's chopped up,
it's got to
get there. So that's kind of been one of our, speed of fresh is one of our slogans is, hey, we'll get it to you quick, on time, and it's going to be right. So he saw that, and he was like, okay, so if we have this, ability and this kind of watermark on our company, let's move into other industries that really share a very similar need. So, over the past 10 years, really have been growing and infiltrating produce, and bakery. DeLallo is another large account. They went from our 15th to our number 7 account.
Okay, through the pandemic?
Yeah, through the pandemic. I mean, they just have if you've ever been to one of their stores or in the grocery, they just have so much stuff. So
I went to college with Dave DeLallo, who's cousins of the Greensburg food DeLallo.
Yeah.
And they had the restaurant out by South Hills Village Mall, DeLallo's. It was an Italian spot. I never met the other half of that family or anything, but I see their name everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and they're a different type of market for us because they're bakery, they're olives, they're biscottis and things. They're different constructions, and that's always been something really interesting, to delve into for people when you're developing a product line like that EFC, or you get into a different industry and you're like, we can print that, but there's a couple things going on with it. You always have those stumbles of whether it's application, or just their quality expectation. And so I always try to tell sales associates who are coming to me with new business, I'm like, listen, you might have a stumble here. I'll make it right. We'll make it right. We'll get it back to them. If it's a problem that I have no idea what's going on, I need them to send it back to me. But we'll make it right. And that's something you really always want to give your salespeople, is the assurity that, hey, no matter what, I'm going to get your person the stuff they need, because that's what their word is on. So yeah, that was very interesting, kind of moving into that. Had a couple hiccups, but DeLallo's grown very well for us. We're very proud of the work we're doing for them. And then, as I said, Access Sledge, a couple other nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals. We just got a new Chicago rep who's been bringing in a lot of cannabis and cannabinoids and things like that. One of the large needs in that she finds is instead of a label, which is pressure sensitive, is what we run, which means, you press it and it sticks. she sees a lot of need for flex pack, which is, anything that like comes in like a bag,
like a poly bag or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And she's like, hey, I have a ton of work that, my people I know in these industries.
In the cannabis?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And everywhere else.
Yeah.
She's like, if we can run this. So that's something that pre-order or the product development team has been looking at is okay, what's it take? Because right now we run stuff that really doesn't go directly on food. So we're like, okay, what do we need to get certified? Because that's a selling point too for your sales rep is, hey, we're this certified, so we're 99.9% clean and hygiene's up, and all these things are selling points. But we're looking at, okay, so what's the investment and what's the return on this flex pack and doing that due diligence. But so that's where we're kind of looking to grow. But over these past 10 years, that's really been the focus, is that, and especially learning that lean improvement is always continuous. Right. You're always got, like you said, you've always got to be reanalyzing every aspect at least, once or twice a week of the business, saying what's going on here and looking at metrics that you've decided are important to your bottom dollar.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that and the growth there, we actually grew to a meat packer who is actually based in Compton, California.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's called Golden West Food Groups. One of the bigger things they do is like all the Jack Daniel's sauce stuff.
Yep.
So that we're putting those labels, any
For
Jack
the bottles of the
barbecue sauce, any
yeah.
Jack Daniel's stuff you're seeing, we're printing it. They're coming out with marinades. Actually, they're little cool like flask bottles.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a good
That's
idea.
sweet. Yeah, dude.
But that's like their little thing. They do just meat, just crazy. And so they grew to our number one customer over the past 2 or 3 years. And now we're saying, and they're always saying, hey, can I get this tomorrow? And that customer, they get it.
Whatever they want, they get.
You get tomorrow.
Absolutely.
There's one customer I know I can't say no to. It's just always a yes.
How do you, so companies like that, customers like that get in touch with you, is that something you meet through trade shows? Is that because you've done so well in the industry for 50 some years? Combination of the two? Is it you knew somebody? How does that relationship fester?
I think there's both of those things going on. I think especially the name that my father's built through the work he's done, not only in TLMI, which that's who I'm wearing right here, #label leaders TLMI, it's Tag Label Manufacturing Institute. It's a converter and supplier group that meet twice majorly a year and two times other times a year to kind of go over financials and planning. But it's just us coming together and really, talking about problems in the industries, issue in the industries, new tech in the industry. And that for us, and I know my father especially really values what we get out of being parts of these industry institutes. And so the other side of it, though, is there's the sales side of those institutes. And so, the National Pork Board, the National Chicken Council. There's one for produce. My sister's like huge on. She'd probably kill me because I can't remember it. But, getting the opportunity to go there and share our knowledge. And then when you have the other aspect of it and people in TLMI, they reach out and they go, oh, yeah, no, we know Yerecic. Yericic's a top tier company. And then you go to one of those and you have that kind of reputation and you're making presentations and people are naturally trying to flow to you, want to talk to you. There's so much power in just making those connections, as throughout your industry and outside of it, because you never know.
Yep. So that's something that's so unique and powerful. And I want to always try to drop some nuggets and different things for other business owners. And even though it's a different industry, right? The unique thing about what you just said there is think about the consistency over time with building the business. Everything has stayed true to the foundation, the core values of the company, the team, right? Well, that leads to opportunities to have seats on different boards or being part in different associations, right? So then now not only are you hey, not only are you growing every single year and every single day in the team camaraderie, the sales numbers, your annual revenues, the other opportunities that come from that, right? But now you also become a referral source from people who that are on these boards, that you've done such a great job as a company and a team that every experience, or the majority of experiences, the vast majority of experiences you've had with organizations, they know by them saying, hey, this is who you need to use Yerecic Label for this, because they're also doing work with a million other companies across the country or across the world. And then that becomes an easier referral source for you guys. Hey, now you have the CEO of this company, the COO of this company, or the sales rep from another company reaching out to you directly through the channel that you've created through that relationship.
Exactly.
And I always say, like, if you compare and you simplify, right? Look at my business. When I started, I was selling suits for $400, losing money pretty much every time I sold a suit. The amount of mistakes I made, the people I didn't know I could talk to, the people that I needed to talk to that I had no idea who could help me, right? And then 5-6 years later, my network of clients is a bigger network. The name is a lot bigger of a name. The reputation has grown over the years. So now it's a lot easier for me to make a call, to get an ask for something, or it's I had a fitting earlier today with a gentleman that said, hey, like, I used to buy off of one of your competitors and I just continue to hear great things about you. And I just want to give you guys an opportunity. Yeah. So why I say that is because you're growing and building a business. What's important is always just staying true to who you are and staying true to the consistency of success and what gets you there. Because the more successful you become, obviously the more successful you become, number one. But what comes from that is the later years in your future just get easier. Yep. And as they get easier, you just have to work even harder and even smarter, because you're getting more business in. So now you have to juggle more. You have more strain on your company brand, on your own internal person as to try to get to those levels. But if you can maximize things, if you could put the processes in to simplify things like you guys have done, when you get to those next levels in business, it's a lot less painful to make the mistakes that are naturally going to happen, because you don't avoid those, right? And even for a 52-year-old business, you're still going to make mistakes, but the mistakes are far less severe.
And you try, I mean, sometimes you'll have one, but you try with all your might to kind of avoid those mistakes, because, like I said, you've tried to pick up every stick that's on the road behind you. But your point's so excellent, because your reputation is everything, and if you're doing the right things, working the right way, treating your associates right, that's where you want to make sure that you're doing the things the correct way, because you never know. We've had people who are at a company that we're trying to penetrate, we're trying to sell. The person there, they like us, but there's people there who there's always politics sometimes. Buyers not like, I like this person because, and so, but
they may be getting tickets for a game. Exactly. They may be getting a Christmas gift every year.
I've had people getting iPads. Yep. But in the end, sometimes you never know what will happen. We've had people, okay, you get a call a couple of years later, oh no, I left that company, I'm at this company now. And you're like, wait, this company that's, 3 times the size. And they're like, yeah. And you guys are the guys. I finally get the choice.
And I make the decision at this point. So here we go.
Exactly. And so you never know. And just making sure that you carry that reputation through even something bad like that, where you're like, I'm not going to react to this, and I'm not going to, say bad things about this company or ignore them. I made a great contact there. Like, we talked about just making those contacts is so important. And whenever you get, opportunities like that, you realize the power of just saying, you know what, every situation I'm going to approach the way is, this could be a number one client someday. Let's make sure we get them the things that they need to give me a chance, because that chance, that's all, you're just going to get one. And so you got to make that experience, at least a unique enough or enjoyable enough experience where the person goes, yeah, no, I could come back to them, because guess what? I like what they're doing there.
Yeah. And another point to that too is it gives you an opportunity to fuck up.
Yeah.
Because even if you mess up and you make a mistake, we're all gonna do it, right? But say you get a new opportunity with a business and your communication is on point, your turnaround's on point, the service is on point, and something comes in, it's just a little off, which could happen. There's human error, there's machine error, there's transportation and logistical errors. There's errors that I didn't know the storing clothing at a certain temperature changed things, right? So it's stuff along the way that you just there's things that happen. Who knew that big freight ship would get stuck in the middle of the whatever
Suarez Canal.
Yeah, like, and then that bogs stuff down for us. Like, who knew those things were gonna? Who knew there was gonna be a global pandemic?
Exactly.
So I always try to tell people is, look, be the best that you can be. Make sure you provide the right service. And if you mess up, hey, I messed up. Let me make it right. Give me an opportunity to make it right. And at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't allow you that opportunity and you've done everything right, so be it.
You've done your best.
Yeah, so be it.
You've done what you think to your core ability makes you a good person, a good company. And that's where, it's interesting because, you hear from other people some things going on, other companies and things like that. And you're like, how could anybody ever work for a company like that?
There's a lot of companies like that.
I know. And so I'm a bit naive. And so it's funny, though. I'll talk to like sales, new hires who are, more like sales rep salaries, things like that. And they'll be like, hey, I love your benefits package. I'm like, you can't talk to me about that because I grew up with my father. I'm like, I didn't realize it until I was like 28.
Yeah.
And I started having kids that, oh, wow, we have this benefits package is really,
I'm glad my dad did this.
which is super naive of me. And that's all part of that learning process of, wow, my father has built a great company with my grandfather. These are the core values of it, making sure our employees' health's taken care of, making sure that their family's taken care of. That has really went so far in developing me and my sisters, and then the rest of our management team. They all really understand, and our associates do, that we're going to do right by you. And the reason why we're going to do that is we're going to do right by our customer too. And the best way to serve our customer is to keep you guys happy, healthy, and your family in a very comfortable living situation. Yeah. So that's, our next step is out to the West Coast, looking like Phoenix, and transporting this culture that we have, about 6 people out there, to start up that West Coast facility to serve customers like Golden West. There's a couple other major ones in produce, as Missionero Grower, dates, Sundays. I mean, you wouldn't imagine the amount of dates people eat in this country.
I just saw a thing. If you eat three dates a day, it had a picture of like the muscular portion of the body and how healthy it is for human beings. I knew nothing about any of that. It was just ironic.
My father keeps trying to understand why. He's like, I wonder if it's a holiday that people are doing. I found something. I was watching a show and they were like, it sweetens vegan food.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe that's it.
With the trend of of course.
With everything, I was like, maybe that's some of it, But in the end, it's like, I'm not going to complain about this. But yeah, so, we looked at the way we kind of started this process was, all right, where it makes sense for us, what's around our customers? Because naturally our customer was saying, I want you in my backyard, like next door.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to put the place in Compton. No offense, I'm sure there's lovely people in Compton.
I love the music that comes out of Compton, but I don't want to live there.
Exactly. So, but anyways, I think it's extremely interesting that Compton has this huge facility and this ability to, create jobs. But so we looked in LA, though. We looked in Sacramento. We looked in Reno. We looked in Las Vegas. And
did you physically go on these trips, or did you have your team? Or
not because of COVID. Typically, we probably would have each. So we had one person heading each kind of team, and we'd come back to BIT each week, and we'd report out on, okay, this is what I found out about it. We put a template together, and that's a huge thing that we love to do, is a lot of visualization up on boards, reporting out daily on boards. And then not only that, but for our internal interviews, we have standard templates for that. For our raises and things like that, we have just metrics and things that so we're going by your quality for the year, your attendance for the year, your throughput for the year. that's making 25% up, 25% up. We're letting our numbers do the talking, and that's how we're giving our raises out. Same thing with this. We said, okay, there's going to be a section for housing. How much does it cost to rent this much? How much does it cost to rent? How much does it cost to buy? What are the water permits? What are the electrical permits? What do the facilities look like? What's there to do? And each team had the same template. So when we come in, and we'd send it out the day before, and so when you come in, you knew everything that we'd found on each of those 6 cities. So as we went over them, we kind of had votes as we went through and found things out. California got eliminated in the first couple rounds because the taxes, everything like that. We talked to people out there who were customers, and they were like, why would you want to move here?
Yeah, everybody's leaving. Mass exodus to California anyway.
Exactly. So,
and you said Phoenix?
Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Reno were the final 3. So recently it came down pretty much to Las Vegas and Phoenix. So suburbs a little bit outside. Henderson's outside of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then Goodyear outside of Phoenix, or like Glendale.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so nice areas. And I actually just went, the reason why I had to cancel on 420, we didn't get to hang, was because I was out in Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a legit excuse on my favorite national holiday, but
exactly. And they had recreational, so I was happy. I was celebrating. Sorry without you.
No, I was celebrating here, so not a big deal at all.
But so I went out there, and really just, we went to see the facilities. One of the main things is the facilities, a huge thing. That on top of the logistics of getting the equipment ordered and it coming together has really been so. Very similarly, we started a master list of what equipment do we want to run out there for these West Coast customers we've identified. And this, now we have another thing, and it's the bit plan for the budget and things. And so the very first thing in that is, what are the potential of these top 12 customers of California or in the West Coast? What's their growth over the next 3 years? Can a facility support this while we support sales back here and still maintain this place, and really analyze it? And so what we like to do is produce 3-year budgets or 5-year budgets based off of 0% growth. The fact that we do nothing, which we know we'd never just not, our company, we'd never not do nothing, but we want to see it. 0%, 5%, and then 10%. Sometimes we'll do a stretch to like 12 if we're really feeling like right now we're running at 18% from last year. So we're feeling really good about ourselves.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, we're really happy. But so we do all that, and then we're looking at the predicted growth of it. And then we're saying, yeah, no, this makes sense. In 3 years, these customers should be at this dollar amount. This is the cost of the facility. This is the cost. These are all the things we need. I mean, in this list is, you're just sitting there and, months go by and you're like, oh no, I need a plate mounter. I forgot it.
Yep.
There's little things, they add up. The last time we got a new press, we had forgot to put cylinders on it. $48,000 later, and you're like,
shit, you don't out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, of course.
I won't forget that one again.
Yeah.
And the cylinders aren't there, So, just being super, super diligent about that, we kind of identified that and made sure that everything was right. Facilities, the next thing, and we're trying to make those all come together. We've got our presses ordered, the dates for them. So now we're saying, all right, we need to have this facility built and at least signed soon, so that we have somewhere to put these presses we've bought. So that's really where I went out to Phoenix and I looked at a lot of that. Vegas's price was a bit higher for rent, like I think $8,000 more, and it just kept rising to be like, I think it was like 50% over budget in our like 7th year.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because what we really decided when we were in Phoenix, we were looking for about a 25,000 square foot facility, and they gave us like a 37,000 square foot one for the price and budget. It's
great opportunity to expand.
Exactly, and so we started looking at it less of a satellite facility, but more like, no, this could be like we have here. We'll put 5 presses in it or 4 in it instead of 2 or 3. We'll grow this out here. And as we look at our company, I said 1998, we built our company. It was around probably, I believe right now it's at 52,000 or 58,000 square feet. At the time, it was around 27,000 square feet. 2010, we had planned a phase 2. We knocked down that wall, and we put in 2 more presses, a digital press as well. And now we're kind of at capacity. And so we're saying 98 to 2012, 12 to 21. It seems like there's like a 10-year thing here going on our growth. So we're saying, okay, so let's do, instead of a 3 or 5 year lease, let's look at 7 and 10. And let's kind of build this facility out to, know, another YL that we could serve, from here. And so that kind of changed things a little bit, but it changed it for the better.
Of course.
So
I want to stop you there for a second and the psychology from a business owner standpoint on that. And I think you make a bunch of great points. And you're in business, you're growing like crazy in Western PA, obviously servicing national clients. And you see a need, you have bigger and bigger clients that are just further and further away. Yep. So from a financial execution standpoint, they're going to want product faster. It makes sense now to migrate out west, which is kind of the philosophy of what you've taken. Then now you're looking at all these different areas. I want to look at Henderson, Nevada, basically Las Vegas, right? Phoenix, Glendale, a couple areas. So then you just talk about, okay, well, I have this budget, I have this forecast, I have this plan to basically accommodate my needs as a business owner. Okay, so then you say, okay, well, I wanted a certain 25,000 square foot facility, and now I'm getting the 37,000 square foot facility, and for the same price, or even if it was maybe a little bit more, maybe it makes sense, right? I'm assuming right now, and this is just my guess, is you don't have the needs for the entire space right now, and a lot of that comes with what's coming in the future. So from a business owner, you look at a situation and you're like, hey, I know that we're good at what we do. I know that if we keep operating the way that we are, I don't know what's going to come. I don't know how it's going to come. It's just going to work out. So there are certain times in business and certain decisions that you make that there's no number that's going to say, hey, this makes sense for this reason. A lot of this is just that internal, I've been doing this for so long. I know what we're doing. If worst case scenario happens, here's the situation. If best case scenario happens, here's the situation. And now what we're doing is we're getting into a bigger facility, substantially bigger facility that's going to accommodate a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year growth from that. And that's something that I think a lot of people, it comes down to trusting your decisions as a business owner. That comes with time. That comes with success over time. And that also comes with making decisions that were wrong at some point that you learn from. The press thing the piece that you missed on there, right? So those things happen. There's going to be other things that happen that you make a mistake on, which we talked about. Not the end of the world. It is what it is. And so from those standpoints, hey, that's a great situation. It's a great opportunity for a business owner. And look, you're in a great spot now.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people need to see, that side of that too, is you're not guaranteed anything. You don't have a true definition of anything. So, I mean, I'm pretty accurate with the thought process on there.
Exactly. You're betting on yourself, but you're making sure that, as you do those processes of, because you're doing them every week and you're really instilling them and you're involved with your team, you're talking to your associates, you're improving constantly, you're watching your metrics and making sure, I set this 10% goal from last year and I'm hitting it or I'm a little bit above it. That gives you the confidence to really bet on yourself and say, no, I've done the work and I'm looking at the forecast, and what the forecast is telling me is, 90 to 95%. This is going to be a really good move for me. And then you look at, your past things, like you say, and you say, you know what? There'd be no reason not to do this and bet on myself, because hey, we're damn good at what we do. And it's not like all of a sudden we're going to wake up tomorrow and say we're not going to be good at what we do. So I think it's almost like the fundamentals in baseball or football or anything, or hockey. You're practicing. So when you walk onto that field, or within anything, the military, anything, you walk out there and you've prepared. And business is the exact same thing. It's preparation, and that's where you meet success, is preparing and then betting on yourself, because we feel very strong about what we are. And, in the end, when we look at that facility, we're like, well, this is great. Like, we can grow into this, and there's a lot of room for us to. One of the things in lean is you don't have a lot of shelf stock, a lot of store, but we're like, we have an agreement. We do a lot of things with our customers, agreements and, rebates if you order so much from us. And even this Golden West, they have like a 50 or 60,000. Probably shouldn't be saying this because our other customers are going to go. Some of them, most of the West Coast have this, some of them don't. But they have like a 50 or 60,000 allowance on shipping rushes. They're like, hey, take this out of it. And we're like, yeah, sure, we'll pay.
Of course.
Well,
the other customers, let's bump up the volume a little bit. We'll get those too.
Just a little bit more, move to the West Coast, build a facility on the West Coast, grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know that, hey, I can stock stuff, because we've grown this huge relationship where they know they can call me and they get whatever they want, whenever they want. And so now I can say, hey, the stuff you order all the time, I'm going to put in this big warehouse that I have a couple presses. They're running a shift, but they're not going to be able to produce everything. So I'm going to run a lot of that here and ship it out there. And then when you call, it'll be 5 hours away from you.
Well, look, there are things that I do in business for certain clients that I don't do for everybody, right? And those are earned things. I have one client in particular, he probably spends $40,000 to $50,000 a year in custom suits. So if he wants alterations 1,000 times a year, I'm going to do that for him. I'm going to drop whatever I have to do. I'm going to prioritize. Look, I could turn suits around in 10 days if I need to. I don't do it for everybody. I'm also not going to even try to do it for everybody because, look, if someone's buying one suit off me a year and they need it in 10 days, it's not worth the headache. It's not worth the stress. It's not worth the money that you make to get that.
Exactly.
But when it's someone that supports you, connects you with, I'll do certain things for certain people, and that's a mutual appreciation and a mutual respect. And we always talk about this. My favorite clients are the best clients that, hey, I don't want a discount from you. I just want good service. I want to pay, and I want to purvey because I want to pay that price because I know with that price comes the best service.
Comes the service, comes the quality, it's always great when you get a customer who understands you as a supplier are an important thing in keeping their business running and they enjoy the time with you. What we do a lot at not a lot, but what we do at our company is we actually just have tiers. We have a tier 1 customer who, guess what? You get free samples anytime you want. You call and you have something going on, and you need a concept look going, we'll do it for free. Don't even worry about it. Then, you're tier 2 and you're tier 3. And it's based off of that. Are you going to order labels off me once a year and it's going to be this amount? Or are you ordering off me every week at this amount? And it comes back to that kind of preparation because that's where you can kind of get stuck in things that we talked about. Like, you're doing things for people who there's not the opportunity to create growth for yourself. And yet at some point you have to say, this isn't worth my time. I need to focus on the people who are helping grow my business, who appreciate my quality, my hard work, and know that I take pride in servicing them.
Yeah, no, good. It's cool to kind of watch this right from afar, essentially, and kind of see because every time I talk to another business owner, or I see something you're doing on social media, or whatever it is, I always compare myself to them because especially. You guys have been in business this long. I hope that I can be in business that long. You're doing something right. So it's a different product. It's a different industry, but it's the same process. It's the same thought process. And I think that's what's really so cool is as you're talking about this, when I started my business, I had 18 employees at one time. Dude, we didn't even have a process down in Pittsburgh, let alone in LA, in Miami.
18 employees.
And then I said, this isn't working, right? And I cut back and we trimmed everybody down. It was me and Alvin at that time were the only two selling out of 16 or 18. We were doing almost $1 million a year in sales with 2 people. And I'm like, man, we got this great team, which is really cool to tell everybody, hey, we have 18 people on our team, sweet. And then you look back, it's like, why don't you stop? Why don't you go back to the basics, get better at what you're doing at this stage, and then grow? And that's kind of what's happened. The pandemic obviously has trimmed things out for us, and it's been a great situation, in consideration of all things that happened through it for businesses. And on this side, my goal for this year was, hey, we did the masks obviously last year. That was the saving grace for the company. Yeah. And then thank you again for the support on those too. You were the first person, one of the first people to call me for those, which was awesome. And then, then we look at the end of last year and I'm like, okay, well, suits aren't coming back for a while, so let's get into casual wear. So started launching casual wear. Then I get into January. I think we did like $25,000 in sales in January for casual wear. I'm like, that's fucking great.
That is.
Well, then all of a sudden that went to shit because the next batch of casual wear came in. The patches were on the shoulder. And then I'm like, okay, the rest of this year is not about scaling the business. The rest of this year is about getting good at ready to wear, making sure that process is good, right?
It's a good thought process.
So I tell the numbers and I tell these things because my goal was like, okay, by the end of 2021, I want to be doing 50 or 75,000 a month in ready to wear. Now that's not a goal of mine. My goal is just to get good at what we're doing.
Get good at it.
And then we'll figure out the other shit at some point that comes down the road. And that's the thing that, it's a mindset to not rush to the ending goal because there's no finish line in what I'm doing. The day-to-day task list is just about improving. And whether you improve 0.5%, 1% a day, or 20% a day, it's all great stuff. And it all puts you in a position to be greater in the long term and also give more security within the organization of the business.
Yeah. I think, one of the excellent points you made there is, you're focusing on your process. You're focusing on, I can do 100,000 or 120,000, but if I'm taking this much in defect and credit because it's not doing it right, it's not going to work out. And just as you grow, that's kind of been the real benefit of these cross-functional teams and stuff is I for years in production saw work up front that I was like, because we really knew the processes in the back. But up front, we really didn't have a ton of processes. We had a way of doing it. And these cross-functional teams, I didn't have time to do that. Now that my sister is in charge of that and recognizes that, now all of a sudden, I don't have to focus that. So as you grow and you come in, to these, into, the industry bigger and you come into needing more associates things, that's where you get the benefit of people who have your mindset. You could go, hey, I need you to get this process right. I want to continue sales growth in this. And if you get this process right, instead of it being 100,000 with 10,000 in defects, it'll be 115,000, and so I think you're looking at it very much in the right way of, I got to make sure my processes are right because anytime something comes back, anytime something's messed up, it just puts you in a bind. It puts you in a hole, and it puts you in a place where you can't serve the next customer as efficiently as you're planning on because you're like, I got to go back and do this rework, and that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, and that even messes with your mental psyche of confidence. The more alterations we have on suits or the more refunds or returns on ready to wear, it's a kick in the ass. And it's like, we shouldn't be doing that. I thought we were good,
Exactly.
And look, the nature of the beast is there's going to be those things. Those are situations that are part of this process. How can you limit those? How can you curb those as much as you possibly can so you can make as much margin as you possibly can in any transaction? But, there are times of the year where this was probably in 2016 or so, very first year we were in business, for an entire month and a half, our suit jackets, the arms were being sewn straight down. And if you notice on a human, when you're standing tall, your arms hang forward. Yeah. So whenever the jacket arms are hanging straight down, as soon as you put the jacket on, it's going to pull in the armpit. And I had no idea what was happening. And it took me about a month to figure it out working with my tailor. Like, damn, it's not us measuring incorrectly, it's our factory. Yeah. And that sucked a lot of the energy out of me. It was one of those things that makes you want to quit.
Yeah, because you're just like, you look at yourself and you go, am I prepared for this? Am I able to do this? I had one today where, we're 52 years and I feel we've had just a record-breaking year last year, record-breaking months this year. Every month this year has been a top 10 best month for us.
Good for you guys. It's awesome.
It's been phenomenal. I'm so proud of the work the team does. But I walk in today to two airs that, you hit it right on the head. You're like, aren't we better than this? Aren't we better than this? And as I look at it and I'm trying to figure out, what's going on here, I see pretty much it's just a lack of attention mistake. And those are the hardest to fix. But what I'm going to do tomorrow morning is get up, go in, and try to figure out what's kind of the template I can put in place to ensure, like I said, this never happens again. And that's, I think, what you really, you talked about that thought. that's where you got to go. You know what? No, I'm gonna make us better, make me better, and we're gonna move forward. Is what we're gonna do.
Every opportunity in business is an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow, and an opportunity to get better. Yep. And I think a lot of people see those situations that you run into like that, a 52-year-old business that runs into that problem, a 3-year-old business, a 5-year-old business that runs into that problem, because it's easier to shell up and it's easier to walk away, or it's easier to be pissed off about that. But those situations and the constant want to improve those situations are why you're in business for 52 years and you're going to be in business for another 52 years. And I always encourage people, like, embrace those things. It's okay to be upset about it. It's okay to be frustrated, but don't let that dictate or change anything for the future. Let that sit in your stomach and upset you a little bit, because it shows that you care and you have a soul and empathy towards that. But the same token, brush that shit off, face it, knock it out, and make that a priority to be, hey, all these other tasks that aren't as important or that I was going to get done later this week, I'm either going to offset that to somebody else, because this has to be a priority, because there's obviously an issue that we're running into right now, and that needs attention, which is probably why you're going to be doing it first thing tomorrow.
Exactly. And what you said there it's powerful, because if that's getting to you, if it's burning in you and eating you inside, it's great, because it means you're passionate about the work you do and you have pride in the work you do. And that's number one, what a characteristic you just want to have. You want to have in your associates. And so having that, and then, like you said, and then saying, okay, then brush it off. It isn't the end of the world. It's what happens. And do you want to have it happening again? No. So put together a plan to fix it, and let's get it done, and let's move forward. So
we had this experience recently with Krista, when her and I talk back and forth about scenarios that we run into, and sometimes we have clients that are they're just assholes, and they're paying for a premium product, and they're assholes.
I'll print you whatever you want, but you're right.
Right. And I was telling her this situation, she needed a garment in it was a deadline. It was we knew that from the beginning. We got it in 5 days to spare, which leaves us enough time to alter it. Well, she takes the garment, and then the monogram for the initials are wrong. Ugh. Okay, cool. Like, it's a day fix. It's not the end of the world, right? Then the pant leg needed adjusted. Again, standard procedure, but that person went AWOL.
Yeah.
And it's like, I told Chris, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, it's not a heart. It's a suit. We're going to make it work. So you could sit there and take it from that person and just keep it in the back of your mind that they're unhappy in their life. For them to be that upset about something, I feel bad that they're that upset. Exactly. We know on our end we're going to make it right. But just to the same point, man, there's situations like that where it eats away at me for days, because I know that when we put a product out, and I know what people expect, and I know what most people get when they work with us. They're very happy. They're blown away with the product. They're blown away with the suit. And we're providing a product that allows, in my opinion, a life-changing feeling. It's it's amount of confidence. It's the way they walk somewhere. It's the way they can conduct an interview. It's they feel like a superhero when they put it on.
It's that suit of armor,
right?
And you're like, this is for me only.
Yeah, and that's so. Whenever somebody doesn't have that experience, it could take me. I'm now at a point where, hey, give me a couple hours, I'm good.
Yeah.
It still bothers me, because I'm like, fuck, I just wish they would have had what everybody else has had.
Yeah.
And I also then have to say, look, there's still human beings making our product. There's still stuff that's in there, like we talked about at the beginning, that there's things that are gonna happen. You have to just factor it in that in your business, in my business, there's always gonna be a small percentage of fuck ups.
Yep.
And you just fix it and make it and go on. And again, if you make the service and the service, the follow up, all that stuff match and mirror what the suit should be, you should earn that person back. But it is hard.
Yeah,
you care.
And when you look at it, the only thing you can control is how you react to that. You can't control the fuck ups that are gonna come, that we've talked about, that are bound to come. The only thing you can fucking control is how am I going to react to this, and how am I going to make it right for my customers, so he or she has that experience that I want them to have, and wants to go out and tell others, because you and I both know, advertising's so great, but like we talked, word of mouth is so massive, because people, they just trust they're friends, they trust, and whenever you're spoken of highly by someone, they're okay. That's my guy then.
And they won't go anywhere else.
No.
So West Coast is coming for you.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a huge project for the many, many years to come. What's next on top of that? Is it just getting out there, expanding, putting your foot down in that area and putting that footprint and just expanding? Is there anything else on the docket for the future? Or tell me a little bit about that too.
I think in the end, that's really our focus, but we also are very aware of, the work we're moving out there and the work we're going to try to grow out there. It needs to be replaced back home. So that's kind of a number one on the agenda. I was talking with my father the other day. I said, I feel so confident about our plan, about the way we have things going. I said, I think the one main thing we have to concentrate on and always keep in the back of our mind right now, our 3-year sales plan looks great. We've got a lot of agreements in for 2 to 3 years, feeling very comfortable with it. But we got to look at that 7. What markets are we going to try to penetrate? And we do a phenomenal job on the production side, but let's make sure we're doing just as phenomenal side on the sales for that future. But as we grow that, we're going to look to grow it to 3 shifts out there, get it pretty similar to what we have here. And then really, it's what the customer dictates. At some point it could be, the produce growers, hey, no, we have facilities down in Mexico now. We're opening a plant down in Mexico so we can go longer into the winter or something like that. And we want you down here and this is how much. I'll come to Mexico or,
of course.
Yeah, up in, British Columbia, there's growing up there. Who knows where this pharmaceuticals will go with cannabis. Yep. When I was talking with them, a lot of them are those tier 1 customers. We were talking about out our meeting the other day, and I said, there's really not a top dog in this industry right now. It's a bunch of small players trying to work their way to the top dog as this becomes legal throughout, medicinal or recreational throughout all 50 states. It's like, so we got to really pay attention to who's the top dog here in this industry at the end and really be the person. The reason we're servicing all of them, though, is we're saying we don't know, and we want them to know the name Yerecic no matter what, whenever, if yours shuts down and you move to that big guy. Yeah. So it's really about, okay, and that could be, up, through Washington and everywhere. Or it could be down in Texas. Texas is huge. Mm-hmm. It's massive. It's a great hub area. But it's really all about what the customer's demand is. Yeah. What is the customer demanding us, and where do we need to be for our top customers? So,
and that is an exact example about the line analogy that we said before. You have a start and you have a finish, and you're going to go sidetracked, and that's all it is. You be nimble enough to be good. Mm-hmm. Be nimble enough to be progressive as well, and that's what it comes down to. So for the business owners that are listening to this, talk to me about the dynamics of size of clients that you can work with. Obviously, there's probably a quantity of sorts. Mm-hmm. There's got to be some expectations that make sense for somebody to want to be able to work with you guys. Yep. Can you talk to me a little bit about that here?
Yeah, I mean, where we're at, typically, and we have the ability, we have a digital press that we can print one label, but the astronomical price you're going to get is, but typically, as we look, anywhere from 10 to 12,000 labels is kind of where we start out with somebody. If you're ordering that many labels, that's where we're going to go into. Our normal quotes kind of start at 12,000, 24,000, 48,000. But you have customers. It's so funny because you never know with some customers. They're like, and then give me the 240,000 one. I want to see the price specs. And you're like, so wait, you're either ordering 12,000 labels or 240,000. They just want to see your price break. But yeah, we right around 12,000, and then sky's the limit. We're working on a Marvel thing right now where it's a code for an offer. It sticks onto a Marvel comic. You peel it and you get to the internet and it gives you an offer. They do, I believe it's 30 million labels a quarter. So we're really trying to get into that. And we've been working pretty hard on that project because, my father may not know who Marvel is.
But you do.
I definitely know. I got an email today. The code user we're using was like, hey, I can't remember the name of the code user, but they were like, Disney's lawyers, they're not going to agree to this, so they just recommend you sign it. And I was like, you have fun dealing with these lawyers, because just say yes and sign the document. But yeah,
man.
it's a great opportunity. A little bit out of our realm too. We had a new sales rep come on from out on the East Coast and brought this opportunity, and we decided, it's another thing where, we don't really do this type of work. We have the ability on other presses, but so what we're doing is we're saying, I have this machine that does it on this press, but I need this press to do it because it's such a large run. So we're running it over here and then bouncing it over here for the first couple, and then saying, all right, if we get this and we get a contract locked in, we'll buy that machine for this machine, and then we'll be gravy. We won't have any problems, but it's about jumping those hurdles. And so we were doing that today, and they looked great, and I'm super looking forward. I'm like, hey, if I could get some free Marvel Disney stuff out of this for my kids and shit,
Well, dude, that's another point of the whole expansion in business, man. And like right now, I'm working on Cena is obviously one of my bigger clients, and we're doing a bunch of. He just bought 30 suits off me for the Fast 9 movie.
I mean, his success. Congratulations to you and him on that. That's amazing. So please,
yeah,
continue.
thank you. And where I kind of talk about that is, you mentioned the sales rep that comes on with the relationship with Marvel and all this other stuff. And I work with John. I do a lot of stuff at all of his movies. I actually designed a couple suits for the movie.
Oh, nice.
So
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
That's
and
awesome.
But you don't know what that leads to, right? And that's the same thing with that rep that comes on. You don't know what that leads to. And at any point, I can get a call, or the company can get a call for a massive project. Hey, we have this movie that John's in, and we want every security guy to wear a suit from you. And that's the beauty of the unknown about building the business. And it also is the beauty of the line analogy. I don't know what direction it's going to take us, but I know that I'm gonna if they want 100 suits in a certain deadline, I'll do it. I'll figure out.
You just say yes.
I'll figure out how to do it, because I know I've figured shit out in the past, and it's always worked. And if it's something that's truly unrealistic, let me put a curve on this a little bit. Hey, I can do this for sure, but this is what I'm not sure I can do, but I'll try.
Yeah, that'll happen in my world, where it's just, hey, I don't have that capability in that machine, but I can do this for you, and if you would like that, it mimics this, or it's this, and then here's some recommendations of people I've learned from TLMI or the European organization FENOT. These are people who are good friends, and they actually do this all the time. I'd recommend them, and that's how you and I, plenty of times, you reach out, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that? But I can't, but let me see if I can find a guy for you, And so that just creates that networking. And like you said, you never know what's going to come from that networking on the next day or the next month. And so you just say yes to the opportunity and try to do it the best you can. And if it's out of your wheelhouse, you offer what you can do, or to say, but I also got this guy and I want to throw him some business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of wrapping up here, to me, right? So you've been around a long time in this business, in this industry. You've literally lived and breathed it for your entire life.
Yes.
What is, for those people that are starting businesses out there and are early in a business stage, what has been the most rewarding aspect of what you've been a part of? And then talk about the psychological side of that too. What it's done for you as a man, as a person, as you've grown with your family. Has business played into that? Has your experience played into that? So kind of talk about the wow factor, or the appreciation factor of what you've gained from this as an overall person.
And I want to try to, not give like crazy cliche answers or anything like that. I think one big thing that, I absolutely love is on the end of the month when we're breaking a record month, or we're hitting our numbers well above, there's this adrenaline that comes through me. And if I'm by myself, I'm, motherfucker, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what that adrenaline is, and that feeling is this huge amount of pride that I have in all the workers who worked so hard for us. That to me is one of the biggest things that my father's taught me and my grandfather instilled in him, and that is so rewarding, is providing a great work environment for associates that makes them happy so that they can live a life and their family can live a life that's happy, it just comes back in abundance whenever you get, you do something that's simple for you, but for them it's so big of, hey, I got, my grandma's, and you're like, yeah, go ahead, and then they come back, or, just conversations you have with them when you're really trying to get to the core root of them. And, they understand you're listening and they're being heard, and they're just like, I really appreciate that you're talking to me about this and you understand. That to me has been so rewarding. Also working with my family every day, not every business opportunity, but working with my family, learning how intelligent and brilliant they all can be, from my mother, who's still, she did payroll at the business, but still is, on our board of directors, and, is always checking in on me about the company. My grandmother, my sisters, my brothers who've worked there. I mean, everybody's worked there, even my sister who's a teacher, and my other sister who's a cake decorator at Oakmont Bakery. Shout out Oakmont.
Right. I should have had you bring out some of that, the sweets, man.
But yeah, even they were, secretary, but, getting that interaction, and now really with, my sisters who are there, my father, and getting that interaction with my father, learning the kind of man he is, how he thinks, and just, it's interesting because you always put your father up here, superhero, and then working with my father, that opens your eyes to, wow, this man can definitely make mistakes. Yep. But learning to deal with them as he has, and those things that he's not only instilled in me, but instilled in the culture of our company, and I see it blossom through everybody. It just, that's where that adrenaline and pride comes from. And so when I'm at my house, I'll be doing stuff that relates to lean, or or just breaking down processes, and all of a sudden you realize you're like, it's entered my home life. Oh, yeah.
It's, you live and breathe it, man. Mm-hmm. But it's done so much benefit for the business. Mm-hmm. Business and personal is all similar.
It's very similar, and you're like, no, this is the right way to do things, and so this is how I'm going to do it. And it's, it's another part of that mindset of challenging yourself, and everything that you're trying to accomplish throughout your day is, I want to challenge myself at being the best at doing this the right way, whether it's, flipping a bottle on top of itself to, running a flexographic press. I want to figure out how to do it the best and be the best at it, because I've always told people in my company, if you're not a business owner and you're working, you can't move up until you train somebody to have your job. So you become the best, you train somebody to be your second and best, and then all of a sudden, hey, you get to move up, and so that's a huge thing too, as I look at that, is just trying to not. There's a quote my dad uses for Vince Lombardi, and it's about nobody's going to be perfect, but we're going to chase perfection until we reach excellence. And I think that's a great quote from Vince Lombardi.
I love that. So as we're talking and wrapping things up here, every time I have somebody on here, I really love listening to the story. I really love, hitting the pain points. I love hitting the what drives them. But I also selfishly, I compare myself to everybody that I have on here. And I am fortunate enough to have the opportunity to sit across the table from somebody who has been a part of a legacy of 52 years. And me being in business for the last 5-6 years, I listen to everything that you guys are saying with the expansion, with the growth, how you operate internally, the way you treat your team, the way you treat your family, the way you treat everybody, and even in your clients and customers as well. And what I find so motivating and so fascinating, and this is really why I wanted to get into business and what made me believe that I could do these things, was I can see my business now in 52 years, because everything that you guys are doing are things that I'm either currently doing or I have in the back of my mind that at different stages in business, these are the next steps that I have to do. This year, we're improving our shipping packaging because I believe presentation is super important. We weren't able to before because it's an expense that you don't realize. It's thousands of dollars to have custom boxes or to present the shipping properly. So those are things that my goal for this year is getting the ready to wear going, and also getting the package and increasing the experience. And I'm fortunate to have two amazing people on my team with Chris and Derek, who do the digital, the creative, and the targeting and things of that nature. And over the weekend, they just updated our website, and I'm like, I look at it over the weekend, I'm like, man, this is another stage in success. Yeah. And you know, we had an opportunity in 2017 to partner officially with Cena, where he was going to take a piece of ownership of my company. And it didn't work out, and he actually told me, hey, you don't need me. You've done this without me. I just want to be along for the ride. And it was the most rewarding.
That's awesome. That's
it was
great.
So cool. And so I say that because I look back now, and I'm 100% in control of everything that we have. Everything I've done since day one has had the intentions of doing what you guys are doing. And then I applaud you guys, because I know in a very recent 5-year term that it's worked. And it's just been being a good person, treating people well, doing what's right, doing what you say you're going to do, and wake up every day trying to get better. And those are the simple things that I've implemented into my day-to-day personal and day-to-day professional life, which are things that your grandfather started 52 years ago, instilling that in the foundation, and you're going to pass it on to your beautiful kids that you have, and then their kids that they have, and so on. And that's the amazing part about a legacy that your family's created. And I genuinely appreciate the hell out of you, dude. I literally, it's been almost 2 hours. I could talk to you for another 2 hours.
We could.
Chris is in there, and he's probably mad at me for continuing to go on, but I truly, man, you're one of those people that I don't see all the time, but the respect that I have for you and your family is just incredible. And it's going to be fun to watch the expansion out west. It's going to be fun to just see what you guys have in there. And then hopefully in another year or two, I can have you back on, and we just give me an update on what's going on there. I'll share some updates on that, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate you, man. I want to make sure people can reach out to you, get in touch with you. So website, social media, any stuff of that, email for the company, however we can have some potential business owners reach out to you. I always want to make sure, and we're also going to put that in the show notes and all that stuff. So is there anybody branding business on your end that people could follow, people can reach out to?
You could go to ylfresh.com. That's our main website, ylfresh.com. Yerecic Label, YERECIC LABEL on Instagram, on Facebook. We have amazing videos that my sister's done on YouTube, strictly about our facility, some of the things we talked about, our continuous improvements, just our hiring, tours of our facilities. So on YouTube, Yerecic Label, type it in, you'll see us. So I think that's all of it. An email, there's tons of them. So if you go to the website, click on an email, somebody will definitely get in touch with you. We're out here to sell for sure.
Awesome. Well, again, Josh, I appreciate it, man. Thank the wife for letting you leave the house and get out here for me, and I appreciate the time. And I want to come out to your facility at some point too, and just check it out.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. Well, no wife. she's been gone for 3 years.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing this all.
Well, good for you, man. Keep it rolling.
Kids,
good for you.
I'm doing it all. And I love it.
Good for you.
She's a good person, though.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, when we started, I was like, I don't think he's actually ever been out.
I've never.
Yeah, no. I want you to come out, because I think when you walk out, that was one of the things that you were talking about at the beginning is, you go to some facilities, you're like, what the hell's going on here? And you go to some, that's the difference between lean, and you'll see it at our place. And I think when you go there, you'll really get a ton out of just seeing, things that you've read about, things, because I know you're always constantly continuing to gain your more knowledge in business. So I definitely would love to have you out. Just let me know when you want to come out, and I should be there, because I'm pretty much always there.
No, I want to, and I will, and I'll do that. And obviously with COVID ending here, hopefully soon, I'd love to, because as I've been growing the marketing business and the clothing business, I've had an opportunity to tour businesses that I never would have before. And I'm blown away with just how amazing it is. And I know, talking with the people and seeing what's happening, with my journey, I know how much has gone into that with the TLC and the love and the attention of everything. And it's your life, man. And
it is.
So you pour all that passion into it. So I appreciate you, man. Very, very appreciative of you being here. Can't wait to see what you got going on. And those of you who are listening, this episode was a lot of fun. Stay tuned. We got a bunch of other cool episodes coming up here in the near future. But Yerecic Label, incredible friend, Josh Yerecic, good friend of mine, incredible product. Family is the best. So you guys need to check them out and make sure you support another beautiful Pittsburgh business. So, all right, guys, thanks again, and we'll catch you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you, bud.